To show you how we make our white bean and green soup. So this is a recipe that you can alter a lot. You can have all sorts of different greens, broccoli, cauliflower leaves, that's what we used. You can use kale, you can use spinach, you could use probably beet greens or turnip greens in it as well. Any of those would be really, really good in this recipe. You can also use all sorts of different types of beans. So we used a northern white bean. You can use navy beans, you could use kidney beans. You can try all sorts of different ones out. We don't have any homegrown beans just yet, so we went with some store-bought navy beans. But this recipe is a little bit spicier, so if you don't like any heat, you might want to cut it back a little bit on the cayenne pepper. For us, I absolutely love it like this, especially on cold, rainy days or in the winter when it gets really snowy. So last night I washed and soaked our beans. They are now ready for us. Anytime you use bagged beans, be sure to wash and soak them really good. Look through them just to make sure there's no rocks or pebbles or anything that's not supposed to be in there. We've picked some fresh greens. This is some broccoli leaves, cauliflower leaves, a couple spinach and kale leaves. You can use turnip greens, beet greens, any of those type things. Collards work great with this as well. And then we've got a head of garlic. It's about 16 cloves and 4 medium onions. We're gonna chop these up and get them sauteing. We've got about 8 tablespoons of olive oil going, and we're gonna go ahead and put our onions and garlic in. And you can see the onions and garlic have gotten a nice golden brown color to them. We're gonna go ahead and add our broth, the kale, and our soaked beans. So we added the 4 cups of beans that had soaked and had been washed. And we added 32 cups of broth. You don't have to do this large of a batch, but I'd like to double. If not, for this one I'm quadrupling it. And then I'll can about half of this and we'll have the rest for lunch and dinner. And then the only thing, major thing left to add before we do our spices is our greens. So you can do again kale, collards, broccoli leaves, cauliflower leaves, any of those type things. And we're going to be doing 16 cups. And this will boil down, so I'm not too worried about like this overflowing or anything. It's still got a fair bit of room there. And these we've washed, we've de-stemmed them, and we've cut them into about bite-sized pieces. I aim for about 1 inch squared. We're just going to mix all that in. We've got it to a nice boil, so we're going to reduce the heat and simmer it for 30 minutes. If you plan on canning any of this, now is a good time to get your lids ready, as well as heat up your jars. So our soup is ready to pack into the jars. We're going to hot pack these. So I've got my jars heated up over here. Our lids are ready, and we've got our funnel and everything else we need to get started. I'll be using reusable lids today. If you're looking at eating any of this while you're canning it, you're going to want to cook it for another probably about 2 hours until the beans are done. More bean in that.
I hope we have some extra to see what it tastes like.
Mm-hmm. We've got our jars packed. We've left 1 1/4 inch headspace in them. We're going to go through it, and with a clean paper towel, I've just gotten it wet. We're going to wipe each of the rims off. You can use a clean a clean washcloth some people do. I just kind of prefer this because I can fold it and use a clean spot on each of them, so I don't have to worry about any of them touching a spot that was dirty. And this is just to make sure that there's no grease or anything around the rim. Alright, once that's done, we'll toss that and get the lids on them. This is the same as with the banana jam with the reusable lids. You just want to hold down with about 2 fingers. These are really hot, so just be careful. Before we put our last jar in, there's 2 things we want to do. First, you want to check the water level. For ours, we want about 2 to 3 inches in the bottom, so I've adjusted that. You can just use a clean ladle and scoop out your extra. I just put my extra in the same pot that I was using to heat up the lids, and I'll dump that in a minute. If you have hard water, like I do, you will want to add a splash of white vinegar. What this does is it helps cut that hard water so you don't get mineral buildup along the sides of your jars. It doesn't take a lot, and it's not real scientific in terms of a measurement. Just do a little splash and you'll be good there. If you don't know if you have hard water or not, you'll find out pretty quick. It's terribly bad, but I will notice it if I don't do the splash of vinegar. And what'll happen is right about here where your water is filled up in your pressure canner, you'll see a white mark build up after you've taken these out and they've cooled off. For me, it's really faint. It's kind of foggy. If you have really bad water though, it'll be a pretty clear white mark there. Once it gets on there, it's kind of hard to cut off. Vinegar definitely helps, but that little splash will save you a lot. So especially during canning season, just keep your white vinegar close to your oven or your stove, wherever you're going to be canning. That way you can put a splash in there and just remember to do that. And these ones are pretty easy. When you set it down, you'll have it on the open. You'll twist the top and bring it to the closed. I might have to do 2 hands with it. Nope, there we go. We're going to be keeping an eye out for this piece right here to have a steady flow of stream. Once I get that, I'll bring you back. It's kind of hard to show y'all, but if you see that steady stream of steam coming out, that's exactly what you want, and you want to let it do that for 10 minutes. We've got it up to 10 pounds for pints, so you're going to do that for 70 minutes. For quarts, it's going to be 90. We've still got a fair bit left, so I'm going to continue cooking this for dinner. Alright, so the 90 minutes is up, so we're going to cut the oven off and let it cool off. You want to make sure not to move it or touch anything on it. Definitely don't take the weight off the back or try to remove the lid. We'll just let this cool down naturally. You'll slowly see the gauge here will go down to 0 pounds of pressure. This little middle piece right there will drop right back down. That little spot right there in the middle will drop back down, and only then is it safe to remove the weight. The pressure's been off for about 5 minutes or so now. We can tell the pressure's off because the gauge says 0, and this piece right here has dropped down. It's no longer sticking up. It's still really hot, but it is now safe for us to remove the weight, so we're just going to take this off and set it aside. From here, we're going to give it 10 minutes to continue cooling off before we open the lid. If you open it too early, it'll actually cause it to overflow and bubble out, so just leave it like it is for another 10 minutes, and then it'll be ready to unload. I've removed the lid, and we're going to give these just 5 more minutes to cool off, and then we're going to remove them. If you were using the metal flats, then you would just wait to hear them ping at this point. You could just leave them and go on to bed. With the reusable lids, you've got to give them about 2 minutes, and then you can tighten the lids down. So we're going to give these 2 minutes, tighten the lids down, and cover them up for the night. And in the morning, we'll check them all to see how they sealed.